Welcome to the very first episode of Slice of Racing. This is a new channel that I am starting to where I'm going to go over everything NASCAR related. NASCAR is one of my favorite things to talk about, so we're going to talk about it. The 2025 season is only a few weeks away now. February 2nd or 3rd, we're going to have the Bowman Gray Clash. So we are getting closer to the season. It's a very short off season. But I thought it's never too early to talk about the playoffs and what the playoff predictions will be. Now, obviously, the hot topic, and maybe this video will be outdated very, very quickly, but that there is rumors that they will change the playoff format for 2025. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're not going to change it that much. There is no way they go away from the 16-car field. There is no way they do away with when you're in. So I'm going to assume those are staying and just go with that. But to make it more fun and to not have a really short video, I'm going to go over every team and tell you my thoughts. I'm going to put them into different brackets on how likely they are to actually make the playoffs. Are they locked in pretty much right now? We know they're going to make it unless something, disaster happens. Are they probably? Are they a coin flip? Or is it a miracle if they make it in? Let's talk about every team. We'll start with the locked in. We'll work our way down. Starting with the locked in. Now, I have 8 drivers on this tier. I think these guys are guaranteed to make it in. There is no way they don't unless something major happens, whether it's a catastrophic season or whatever. I just don't see any way that these guys miss it. Now, my 8 drivers for that is fairly predictable. Kyle Larson, I just don't see how he's great. Chase Elliott, I know he had kind of an off season the last 2 years. He still performs really well. I just don't see him slacking that much. 2020 or 2023 he got injured. That won't happen again, hopefully. And last year, he did win a race, but even without that, he would have easily made the playoffs, so I'm not really worried about that. William Byron has been getting better and better every year. I know last year wasn't necessarily he wasn't perfect, but he still is great, and he will win a race, at least one. I predict he'll probably win multiples before even the playoffs, but I think he will. Ryan Blaney's been very good last few years. I think he's finally getting into a rhythm to where he can actually perform consistently. I don't think he's like that 1 year win that he was on for a while. I think he's finally that multiple win type driver. Joey Logano's going to end up winning a race. Like him or hate him, he'll end up winning somehow. Or if he don't, he'll perform well enough to sneak into the playoffs and he'll be a threat. There's just no way around it. It's Joey Logano. Denny Hamlin's kind of an odd one because, well, I do think he will easily make it into the playoffs. I do think we are starting to see the sunset of Denny Hamlin. I love Denny Hamlin, but it happens to everyone. Jimmy Johnson had it happen. Everyone has it happen. You can't, and not everyone's going to be Jeff Gordon to where you ride off into the sunset at Homestead. It just won't happen. And I think we started to see that last year when some of the cracks formed. I think we'll see some more of that this year, but I do think it's enough that he'll continue and get into the playoffs once again. Also, Christopher Bell has been great. It's kind of like William Byron. He's just been really good the last few years. I just don't see how he would miss the playoffs. And Tyler Reddick. I think Tyler Reddick easily makes it in. He's been very good. I think he'll at least get a couple wins before the playoffs. Whether or not he can perform like he did last year, that's to be seen, but I do think he'll make the playoffs. Now, in the probably in. Now, these guys, the next 6 here, I think will make it in. I don't think there is a big, I'm not going out on a real far limb to say that they're going to make it in, but I do think there is a path that I could see to where they don't. So, not necessarily that I think it's, a coin flip that they'll make it in. I think there's a good chance they'll make it in, but I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. And first up, Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher has been really, really good. I know he only got 1 win last year, and that was after the playoffs had already started. So he missed out on the playoffs, but he almost won Kansas, that amazing finish there. And he was always there. I mean, he was there at Darlington. He was there multiple times to where he could have won if circumstances played a little bit differently. So I just don't see another situation where he doesn't. Like I said, there's a possibility that another situation like last year happens, but I just think eventually things have to go right for him at some point. The same can be said for Ross Chastain. I just don't see another year to where he just doesn't perform, as well as he should. I know he's got the talent, like Chris Buescher. I know he can, and it's just getting those wins earlier in the season, performing to where you can make sure if that happens, you're high enough in points. You don't have to worry about points at the end of the season like they did last time. Next up, Ty Gibbs. I think Ty Gibbs will make it in. I think he'll finally get that win this year. I think he's right on the edge of getting that first win, and I think he will. Now, hopefully, it's fairly early in the season. They can start, actually working together to try to be successful in the playoffs, because I think that's the next step. They made the playoffs last year. Now they have to actually perform in the playoffs. He's kind of like the William Byron almost, to where he's, taking baby steps. We need to start seeing bigger steps now. I think he can, but it's just doing it, and I think he will this season. The next one here, Alex Bowman. I think Alex Bowman will make the playoffs. I don't think he's quite on par with that other three, but that's not to say that he isn't good. I think he's very good, but I just think that 48 team, it's not crazy to say that he is not performing on the scale they are. It's just Hendrick's good all around, so I just don't see him missing it, even if he still is performing a little bit less than the others. Brad Keselowski, kind of a similar thing to Denny Hamlin, but I do think Brad Keselowski has quite a bit left in him, but I think his goals now are kind of shifted. While Denny Hamlin is still full-on driver mode, I think Brad Keselowski really does care about making sure his team is great. And we've already talked about Chris Buescher, we'll talk about Ryan Preece in a little bit, but I think Brad Keselowski will get at least another win or two and this year, and I think he can easily make the playoffs again. I hope we see a bit of a longer run. I think he could go far in the playoffs, but time will tell. And the last one on this probably will make it in is Chase Briscoe. I have pretty high hopes for Chase Briscoe this coming up year. I know it's a new team, and it's a big jump. You went from the 14, it was not great, to a basically top tier car now with the 19. So I do think there's a bit of pressure, but I do want him to fully take that over. I think he could easily surprise us and get a 3-4 win season. It wouldn't shock me. And if that happens next year, he'll be in that top group where they're locked in. But I can't put him there yet. I think he's got the talent. I think he's on par, if not better, than where Martin Truex Jr. was whenever he left that car. That's no insult to Martin Truex Jr. I'm just saying I think Chase Briscoe has that talent. So I think he will easily make the playoffs. Why he's not any higher is because it's a new car. You have to work out the kinks like any team would when they get a new driver. So if you've been counting, that is 14 drivers when there's only 2 spots left. And this all depends on what happens. How many wild card winners are there? So this next group is a coin flip, to where either none of them could get it in if we see some really crazy winners. No one expected Harrison Burton to make it in last year. If that happens again, then there you go. None of these guys make it in. One of them makes it in. But I do think there is a good possibility any of these drivers could get in. I would not be shocked if they got in, but I also am not shocked if they get out. It is a coin flip. First up here is Bubba Wallace. I think Bubba Wallace has improved year by year. I know he didn't get a win last year, but I do think he could get a win multiple times during the year. I think he could, but I just don't have enough faith that if he doesn't get that win, and we have multiple winners like, past years, I just don't know if Bubba Wallace can get enough points throughout the season to make sure that he can get into the playoffs. We do have a new crew chief coming this year. How will that affect the 23 team? We'll have to find out. The next one here, kind of a similar thing, but also I want to see more out of him, and that's Austin Cindric. I really like Austin Cindric. I think he has talent. I think, his run in the Xfinity Series showed he's a good driver. And, I think he could go out and win multiple races in a year. But we have to see that. We saw, Blaney and him are kind of, they're hard to compare, but they're easy to compare because Blaney started in the 21 and Cindric was immediately thrown into the 2. Yes, that's a, you know, that's a championship winning car. The 2 is. I know that we're being harsh on him, that he's not won, multiple races, but I think it's just he needs time. And I think we're getting to that point to where you've had time. It's time to actually perform. And hopefully he does, and I think he can. I think he's one of the best qualifiers in the garage, to be honest. I think he's very, very close to being that weekly driver that is there. Is he a weekly, winning races? Maybe not yet, but I think it's close. The next one here is probably the biggest coin flip in the garage. That's SVG. I think Shane Van Gisbergen could easily get into the playoffs, but it's going to be at a road course. I don't think he points his way in. He's not going to win on an oval. I think this first year, he just needs to figure out ovals. He needs to figure out, how he can steadily get points, perform well on ovals, but then it comes down to road courses. If he can win in one of those road courses, there you go. It's over. And no one will be shocked if he does. So that's why, even though he's going to be a rookie, I'm not shocked if he goes out and wins a road course and gets into the playoffs. It's just, does he do it? And that's the thing. We can have another Chicago situation where something crazy happens, he goes out, and then it's done. So this is basically the argument with Shane Van Gisbergen. Is he going to win at a road course? If he does, he's in. If he doesn't, he's out. Next up, Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez is an interesting case because his wins are not shocking. He probably could have won a few races last year. He could have won at Richmond if everything kind of went a little bit differently. I think he could have. He was pretty good that race. He won at Atlanta. I think he has the ability to win races. I just don't think it just doesn't show up all the time. And so will we have another event where he just shows up randomly and we're like, wow, he could have won the second Atlanta race. Even though he won the first one, he could have won the second one. It's just, does it happen? We don't know. It's kind of a coin flip. And the last one on this group, and I hate to put him here. I wanted to put him up higher in the next tier, but I just can't. That's Kyle Busch. It's not a Kyle Busch problem, in my opinion. It's an RCR problem. RCR is so, I don't want to say bad. They're just so meh. And Kyle Busch, he's better than that. He can do better, and I think Kyle Busch is capable of winning a race in this equipment. It's just, will the equipment keep up with Kyle Busch? Now that's the end of the coin flip. Now we're going to go into another group that it probably could happen, but I'm not going to bet on it. Basically, these are drivers that I think if they won, I'd be like, whoa, that's great. It wouldn't be a Harrison Burton moment, but it'd be a Chase Briscoe moment from last year. That was amazing. Congrats. But you're not blowing me out of the water because I have a little bit of faith in you. It drops as we go down this list because this is the biggest tier. I think this is a big group of drivers. There's a lot of really talented drivers in the field this year with good equipment. I just think they are not quite to the tier above this one. Speaking of RCR, Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon is like this. You never know. He could go out, he could win a race randomly. It could happen anywhere. Would anybody have predicted Richmond? I mean, he's pretty good at Richmond, but it's so random whenever he decides to actually show up. He just randomly shows up sometimes, and you're like, okay, guess he's here now. So does he show up? We don't know. We don't know. And if he does he do something like he did last year and it causes him not to make the playoffs? We don't know. We'll find out. But probably won't make the playoffs. The next one here is one that I put in this tier simply because I just don't know enough about what he's capable of in a car like this. And that's Ryan Preece. I think Ryan Preece can go out and win a race. And I think he can point his way in. But I think there's a lot that also relies on how does RFK run this year? How does the other teams run? It's just, I just don't think he's going to be one to where right off the bat of the season we're thinking, oh, that's a championship level car, or even I'd say playoff worthy car. I do think he was in the worst equipment at SHR. I don't think we've ever seen him in good equipment. This is really the test. I know people said they kind of gave up on him after SHR. I think that's harsh. I think now this is the time that we have to really grade Ryan Preece. Will it work? We'll find out. Now this one, I almost put in the tier above this. Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar, in my opinion, was the biggest surprise of last year. Didn't, shock me that he had the talent. I know he's got the talent because he was good in Truck Series. Whether you hate his driving style or not, he was good, but Truck Series is not a good grade of talent. It's not ever been for a while. But now, he actually showed up last year. There was multiple races. He was a top 10 threat, easily. He was a rookie. Now we're going into that sophomore year. Does he keep that momentum? Do we get a repeat of that? Does he regress? And if he continues going, is there a chance that, like, Zane Smith was at Nashville last year, could he show up and maybe steal a win away? Wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me a bit. This next one is going to be a little controversial, so bear with me for a minute. That's Riley Herbst. I know it's fun to joke on Riley Herbst, that he is a pay driver. I don't fully buy that Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan simply put him in this car because, they were going to get money off of it. I know that is some of the reason, but I do think there is a bit that they can see talent with Riley Herbst. Is it going to show up every week? No. But is it something that, could shock us and we get like a Carson Hocevar last year? I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think they're going to give him bad equipment. I think they're going to give him good equipment to see what happens. It's just, how does he perform? And we don't know. The next one here, Justin Haley. I think Justin Haley could easily give us a Carson Hocevar or better year in that car. The question is, does it all click? I think this is more of a Spire question for all three of those cars, is how good are they? Do they step up from last year, or do we get a kind of same as last year? If it's same as last year, I'm not going to put a lot of faith in them. If they step it up, though, all three cars are a threat. The next two here are pretty similar, and that is Noah Gragson, first up. I just don't know enough about what Front Row Motorsports can show us this year. I think they could do something great. It's kind of like the same with Spire. What are you going to bring to the table? If you bring really good cars, all three are a threat. If you don't, then none of you are a threat. Simple as that. The next one, Todd Gilliland, same thing. I just don't know what these cars are going to be. Was Michael McDowell holding the team up? Was he kind of being this anchor that was kind of giving the other, Todd Gilliland this, kind of supporting him? Or was he holding the team back? We don't know. Or was the team improving and, we'll see the fruit of their labor now. Speaking of which, Michael McDowell. I know I'm ranking him last of the Spire cars, and I know he's been really good. He's had poles on super speedways every time. I don't think those poles are Michael McDowell. No offense to Michael McDowell. I think that's a Front Row Motorsports thing. I do think he's got talent. It's simply, will Spire Motorsports show up? I don't think, if Spire is kind of mediocre this year, I don't think we're going to have any runs to where he's going to elevate the car. I think he's going to give you exactly what the car brings to him. So if the car's really good, he'll be really good. If it's mediocre, he's going to be mediocre. I think with Carson and Justin Haley, that they can be a little bit better, but I just don't see that out of Michael McDowell. Next up is AJ Allmendinger. Simply, does he win a road course? The only difference between him and SVG is I have more faith in SVG than I do in AJ Allmendinger. Not necessarily because I don't have a lot of faith in AJ Allmendinger, I just don't have a lot of faith in Kaulig. Two more for this group. The next one, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I don't really know what to expect out of this team. Do they go out and do they perform more than they ever have, even though they lost the Kroger deal? I don't know. I don't think they will, but we never know. And Ricky Stenhouse, really doesn't matter whatever car he's in, he's still a threat at super speedways. So will we get a Talladega situation or a Daytona situation? Maybe, but it's kind of far-fetched at this point. And the last one in this group is Zane Smith. And the reason he's here and not higher is because we don't even know that Zane Smith is going to be in this car. He's rumored to be in front row. We don't know for certain he's going to be there. I would assume he's going to be there. I just don't see a world where they get a third car and don't pick Zane Smith. But it's not locked, so he probably would be a little bit higher in this group, but he's not there yet, so that's why he's low. But I do think it wouldn't shock me if he was able to sneak into the playoffs, but probably not. All right, finally, we are to the miracle tier. There are 5 drivers left, and these 5 just, it would be a miracle if they made it in. A Harrison Burton at Daytona type moment to where it really just shocks everyone if it happens, because it just probably won't. And unfortunately, I have to put Josh Berry here. This is not a Josh Berry problem. It's a Wood Brothers problem. Paul Menard was okay in the car. Matt DiBenedetto was okay in the car, and then it was no better with Harrison Burton. I do think, all of them, Matt DiBenedetto made the playoffs in the car, but I just don't think any of them excelled in that 21 car, and I don't think Josh Berry is going to excel in it either. Could it happen? It'd be a miracle, but it could happen. These next 2, I hate to put here, but it'd be a miracle because this team has been god-awful, and that's, first up here, Eric Jones. Eric Jones, I hate to see him in this situation. He is a great guy. I mean, what he does off the track is great. He has shown us before he's got talent. Unfortunately, Legacy Motor Club is just not it, and they are making changes to their logo, to the font of the numbers. I'm sorry, that's not going to change your performance on the racetrack. Prove to me that you can perform on the racetrack, because otherwise it's not going to be good. The same for John Hunter Nemechek. It's an Eric Jones situation, but even worse, because I have more faith in Eric Jones. Not that John Hunter Nemechek is bad, but this team is just not on the scale that it should be. And this next one, it would honestly be a miracle because of this team and what it is and where they're at. And, would it even... well, we don't know anything about this team, and that's Cole Custer. Could it happen? Maybe, but I just, Stuart Haas was not in a good place. I just don't see to where they drop down to 1 car. They're pretty much a skeleton crew of a team, and they can go out and win or make their way into the playoffs. I just don't see it. This is no insult to Cole Custer. This is just, I don't know if the team has it in them. And finally, in the miracle tier is Ty Dillon. It's just not going to happen. I mean, with Kaulig, with Ty Dillon, neither of them are, superstars. It's just not going to happen. Now we do have one car left, and I don't want to completely ignore them, and that's in the last tier. There's a secret tier at the bottom, and that's the but does it even matter tier, and that's the Rick Ware racing car. Does Cody Ware have it? Does Corey LaJoie have it? We don't know. I mean, they've said that kind of Cody Ware's going to have it, but we don't know anything about it. So they're just going to show up at Daytona. We'll know more. Is that a full-time ride? Is that a part-time thing? We don't know. And if it's Cody Ware's not going to make the playoffs. I'm sorry. It just is not going to happen. If it's Corey LaJoie, I still don't think he ain't going to make the playoffs. And if it's a part-time thing, nobody's going to make the playoffs just out of you aren't doing all the races. So, yeah, it doesn't matter. Now it is time to decide my 16, my predictions. You've waited long enough. It's finally time. I don't think anything's going to happen to these first 8. They're going to make it in, no questions about it. And those 6 in the next tier, I think same thing. I think they're going to make it, no questions asked. So that leaves 2 spots. And these 2 spots were hard for me because there's so many situations that could happen. We could have a Harrison Burton. We could have a Chase Briscoe scenario. All of this could happen. But I think these 2 just make the most sense to make it in. And I'll kind of explain my reasoning. First up, SVG. I just don't see him missing the playoffs. I just don't see it happening. I think he's got it. I think he's going to win a race. I think the more practice he has on ovals, I think that will improve not only his oval abilities, but I think it'll improve his road course abilities because he'll know the car more. Not doing all of the Xfinity races, I think, will help him. He will be more experienced and ready to go for those road course races, and I think he'll get one. And finally, my final driver that I think will make it in, I'm going to go down a tier. I'm going to ignore all of these. I think Carson Hocevar will get in. I know. I put him in the tier below, but I think he can do it. I really do. And I have faith in Spire. I think it'll happen. Trust me on this. Maybe I'm completely wrong. If I had to pick another one, it'd be Kyle Busch, but I think Carson Hocevar does it. I just think he's right there, and if he can just clean up some stuff, I think he goes the distance. Does it happen? Probably not, but maybe this is wishful thinking, but that's my prediction. So anyway, here is my 16 drivers that I think will make the NASCAR playoffs for 2025. We'll come back to this in the winter or in the fall and see if I was right and then make more predictions. But until then, we will be having more videos here. This is only the first video of Slice of Racing, but we will have many more on the way as we lead up to Daytona and Bowman Gray, and we will have weekly race reviews as well as a few videos in between there. We'll work out a schedule as we go to see what you guys like, what you don't, what you want out of this channel. But until then, my name's Dan, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.